how do you know if you have an addiction?
Yeah, so dopamine is one of the most powerful molecules in the brain. And each time we reach for our phone and we tap it, which happens to the average person more than 150 times a day, it releases dopamine. That in of itself is an incredibly, almost satisfying experience because you want to satisfy that itch. So each time you press it, it releases dopamine, and the smartphone really is the ultimate shortcut machine. So over time, especially since the cell phone, it's progressed more and more from 2007 with Steve Jobs introducing the iPhone at the Moscone Center to literally what we have today. It's become more and more of a shortcut machine. And we know it's a behavioral addiction because it is simply irresistible. You look around at the train station, 99.99% of people will be looking down at a phone. You go to a concert, 99% of people will be looking at their phones and their screens rather than at the actual musician. It is absolutely crazy. So, yeah, that really speaks to the behavioral addiction piece.
Is that the addiction part? The fact that when we have moments of boredom, we rely on our phones to satisfy the dopamine?
Yeah, absolutely. This is where definitely the moral panic piece, comes in. There have been many moral panics in the past throughout time, and I've interviewed communications historians about this in terms of precedent, and we talked about television, comic books, radio. There have been all kinds of moral panics in the past, but what makes this moral panic so unique? And what makes this moral panic so unique is never before in human history has there ever been a time where we just can't be alone with our thoughts. We just can't. It's absolutely wild. We're in a waiting room at a doctor's office. Nobody's looking at a magazine. Everybody is looking down at a phone. When we're at the grocery store, it takes 3-4 minutes waiting in a line. Nobody can literally just stand there and just think. When we're in carpool line waiting for our kids at pickup, everyone is looking down at a phone. Every single person. Even just at 3 or 4 minutes, that time is critical. You might think, oh, what's 3 or 4 minutes? It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
No, our mind absolutely needs that time.
Why?
When you're dealing with stress and when you're dealing with anxiety, one of the most important things is for you to be able to compartmentalize those thoughts, to confront those emotions. If you're just going on CNN.com or NewYorkTimes.com, or you're going on TikTok or Instagram to sort of push aside those anxieties, you're not actually confronting them. You're not actually coming face to face with them. And that is so important, is to really feel actual emotions. If you're sad, that's okay. Let's say you break up with a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever it might be, and you're really dealing with it. It's difficult. Like 30 years ago, you'd come back home and you'd cry. You'd cry. You get really vulnerable. If you're in college, and this is where I profiled a college student at Notre Dame, he broke up with his girlfriend, and he said if he still had a smartphone, he ended up breaking up with a smartphone, he still had a smartphone, he said he would have gone back to his dorm room and just spend time on social media, just scrolling. But since he didn't have that ability, what did he do? He sat down in his dorm room futon for 10 minutes, felt awful, and what he decided to do was he went to his friend's dorm room and made himself completely vulnerable with his friends. His friends got to see him in his most vulnerable state, and he said he never would have done that if he still had the smartphone. But that is so unbelievably important in terms of the recovery process, in terms of a breakup, is to feel those feelings. And if we literally just cover it up with the next TikTok video or the next Safari website you pull up on your iPhone, it's really a problem.
So this is an interesting piece. Is it the content we consume that is dangerous, or is it actually just being on the phone?
Oh, just being on the phone. I mean, you could be just scrolling through photos in your photo library. You could be on a Substack, which could be more high quality content, or however you want to call it. You could be in your email. You could be playing a mobile game. It doesn't really matter what the content is. The issue is that we're distracting ourselves from what we should really be doing, which is really confronting what we're going through, processing what we're going through. It's a really, really healthy thing to embrace that solitude. And that's one of the first things I heard from. I interviewed dozens of people who went through smartphone breakups. And that's one of the first things people experience is they feel withdrawal the first at least few days to 2 to 3 weeks after breaking up with their smartphones, after turning it off. Because one, it's a behavioral addiction, but two, we're not comfortable enough in our own skin to be able to deal with that silence. It's absolutely wild.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense, and especially in the long term, not long term, but long form when we're sitting down and we need to just acknowledge our thoughts. Why is it important in these 4 minutes, these 2 minutes we're waiting for the elevator, these 2 minutes we're waiting for the train, these 2 minutes when we're waiting at the hospital to be so unplugged from our phone? Because you mentioned earlier, no one's looking at a magazine. What is the distinction between looking at a magazine and our phone when we're waiting for the doctor in the hospital's room?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that if you're reading something, that is a very low dopamine, but very high quality activity where you're processing ideas. You're confronting different ideas, whether it's reading a book or reading a magazine or a newspaper. And that can be therapeutic in of itself, doing something like that. There's also something in terms of embracing the analog and embracing something that's actually physical in terms of a physical magazine or newspaper or book that's also incredibly satisfying. But I do think, putting aside the book and the magazine, that it's really good, even if you're at a doctor's office, just to take 4 or 5 minutes and just to not think about anything. That's good. I encourage people, like, as one of the first steps before, as you're preparing for a smartphone breakup, is to go out for a walk for 45 minutes. Don't bring your smartphone with you. And for most people, they will freak out inside. Just absolutely freak out. Now, if you're, let's say, a female listener at NYU and there's a safety concern, okay, if you have a safety concern, turn your phone off. And if you really feel like for emergency reasons you need it, all right, just put it in your purse or back pocket or a backpack, but make sure it's in an off state. But in general, you can leave your smartphone behind in your dorm room or your house, whatever it might be. And when you go for it, the first few times it's going to be very, very unsettling what you're going through. But then you're all of a sudden going to like it. You're like, this is like my sacred time going for this 45-minute walk with literally no distractions. Now, of course, if you're in a place like you are, like New York City, there's plenty of things to look at, but the mind will wander, and that's a great thing.
Yo, if you like that, then you're going to like this, the full episode. Come on. You know you want to click it. Come on. All right, well, if you're not going to click that, you might as well subscribe.